I believe in angels, and I believe in you. I believe in the simple things and everything you do. I believe in the heavens above, and I believe in truth. I believe in the love we have, because I believe in you. So tell me, do you feel the way that I feel? Then tell me, would you give what I'm willing to give? And I believe in honesty, and I believe it's true. And I believe if you set it free, it will come back to you. And I believe that things were meant to really be. And I believe in the love we have, because I believe in you.
And welcome to Cancer Kickers, everybody. I'm Vince Easley, filling in for J. Cynthia Brooks, and she may be along today. And I have a very special guest, April Boden from Truth or Talk, right here on Sundays on UCY. Wonderful guest. Welcome everybody in chat. We got our tiny little chat going here. Chitango is down, and I've popped on and watched this little site where people are posting, and it's just caused chaos around the world. I'm not kidding. Welcome, April. Very glad to have you.
Hey, Vince. It's good to be on today. Thanks for asking me.
I'm so glad. Yeah, I listen to you guys every Sunday, of course. University. Wonderful show. You can talk on any topic, any of the most important topics of our time today, and there's so many of them. And today we're going to talk about some vaccines and cancer. We'll probably also correlate autism, and which Aiden, your son, has autism. So yeah. A big struggle for so many people in the world today, and more so, especially in the industrialized worlds here, where we're, so much of the vaccines and GMOs, and even into the third world, of course. But right. So you've had a lot of great guests and topics. Chris Wark, Ty Bollinger. There's so many great people out here doing so much, and
yeah.
By ourselves we're nothing great, but you know what? Together we are something, part of something very, very great, and I'm proud to be along for the fight.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it is a struggle, and as you mentioned, I have a son who is autistic. He regressed after vaccination, so it wasn't a fight I necessarily wanted to take on. I wasn't eager to sort of find all this out, but I did, and it's changed my life, and it's kind of changed the person that I am. So, it's how Christine also had some health issues, which we've kind of traced back to possibly her early childhood vaccines and some issues with asthma and whatnot. And so we bonded over that. And once you start looking into these things, you start seeing so many connections. Like you said, we talk about a lot of different things, but it's because everything sort of just is this matrixy web where everything just sort of connects, and so it's hard not to notice once you start really looking into it that there's so many ways that vaccines or what's going on in with the GMOs and all this stuff relates to just about everything that we talk about. And so and you mentioned the guests that we had on, Ty and Chris Wark. Those are two experts on cancer, and those are Ty Bollinger from cancertruth.net and Chris Wark is ChrisBeatCancer.com, and those two guys taught me a lot about cancer, and actually I think one of the things that I really enjoyed about talking with them is how it empowers you to know what it really is and to really understand it, because it's not that thing that you thought it was before when you heard it and you thought it was a death sentence and everybody who gets it is going to die. So those two guys really came in and brought some light on the subject to me, and I think that's something that would be very empowering to people, and I hope that we can all share and all work together, like you say, together we can make a difference, hopefully.
Absolutely. The big, I would say, argument, which I hate to argue with anybody, but most people assume that vaccines have worked for a long time. Go back to the polio vaccine, and that is probably, there's always a response, like for anarchism, who will build the roads, and but yeah, they always go back to the polio and assume that that was successful, whereas it wasn't. We saw increased rates of polio from those that were vaccinated. Other results, negative results, that is, stemming from vaccines. When I was a kid, I turned 50 this year, so I had a lot less vaccines that are given today, and none as an infant. It was, I didn't get anything till I started school. But I saw today that they now are giving immunizations for chickenpox, and I didn't think there was one of those. So new ones all the time.
Yeah, it's pretty astronomical, the number of vaccines that are out there now, and there's a limitless amount that they're actually trying to create as well. Things that you wouldn't imagine, like to prevent people from becoming a smoking addict or a cocaine addict, or like just really bizarre. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of them. And since you brought up polio, I mean, if you go back to the history of it, there's a really good book by Dr. Suzanne Humphries called Dissolving Illusions, Disease, Vaccines, and the Forgotten History. And when you look at the history of polio, for example, polio was a disease that was very benign. Similar to the chickenpox, probably not even as bad as chickenpox. Less than 0.01% of people who contracted it actually developed paralysis. So what happened was that there was a change before the vaccine was invented. There was a introduction of pesticides into our environment. There was one with lead arsenic, another called DDT. And once those were introduced, then we saw the rise in polio, or that's what they called it. So, but it was really these people that were exposed to these pesticides were experiencing paralysis. They were experiencing, motor planning difficulty and problems within their central nervous system. And so then they relabeled polio, and then General Salkin creates a vaccine, and then the rates actually went up after the vaccine was invented, and then but they still attributed him to the eradication of polio. But really what they did is they stopped using the pesticides that were causing this paralysis. So polio was not considered to be a deadly disease that caused any kind of serious harm. It was something that you could clear most likely on your own. And original cases of people who went in for this poisoning of lead arsenic and DDT went in for poisoning. They went for, and they were treated as such. They were getting chelation treatments, and they got better. So it was damaging, but it was essentially a lot of what goes on with these vaccines is that what they do is the CDC and the World Health Organization now will go in and they'll relabel the disease so that it covers the tracks of industry. I mean, it's really the petroleum industry and mostly petroleum-based medicines and these things that are causing the majority of these problems. It's not a virus that they like to always claim it's a virus, but you can't sue a virus. So what do? They relabel the virus and make it or cover up for industry by calling it a virus. Yeah, but it wasn't at all.
And the polio basically was on its way out due to hygiene, improved hygiene.
Exactly.
Modernization of America. Now, you spoke of, the industry, and we can go back and look back in 1905, and this is the time that the petrochemical industry, everybody was coming together with the AMA and the CDC, they're coming along not long after this time here and before, and they're really making their stand here. So in 1905, the U.S. Supreme Court affirmed the legal authority of state governments to pass laws requiring citizens residing in a state to use smallpox. So that's when we started out with smallpox vaccinations. And so on one hand, they're giving vaccines, and with the other hand, they're passing out, smallpox infested blankets. I'm laughing at, and I shouldn't be, but it's a laughable matter. They're passing out blankets to, the indigenous folks here of this land. And we've come a long way as far as changing status quo and acceptability. More and more people are becoming educated to this, thanks to you and other people like you. So kudos to you, April.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, but now people can opt out of vaccines, and we're probably getting maybe getting a little further with putting the cart in front of the horse is what I'm trying to say, in a roundabout way, but kind of getting ahead of ourselves anyways. But I was going towards where we can exempt our children and even people in hospitals. So we're finding people getting fired, but I think that they ought to be able to opt out too. And laws exist in almost every state to allow for religious exemptions, and some are moral. So let me see. I've got a link here on state laws. I think this is probably a good one. And we have our tiny little chat over there. I'm going to pop it over there for the listeners and listening downstream in YouTube. This is from the National Conference of State Legislatures, and it gives all the states. Here in Arkansas, they have religious and philosophical exemptions. So, and that is in several states, but most of them are not. They allow for a religious, but not for your philosophical.
Yeah, like here in California, what we used to have a philosophical exemption, and then which basically means that anybody can say, I just don't believe in them, period, and they can't ask you why or anything like that. You don't believe in vaccination, and you can send your child to school that has vaccine mandate laws, or go to work or whatever, and they can't really question it. But what they did was about a year and a half ago, they changed the law so that if you wanted to get a philosophical exemption, you had to go to a licensed physician, you had to go to an MD or a doctor of osteopathy and get them to sign off on it, saying that they had explained to you the pros and cons of vaccination and that you went ahead and didn't decide against vaccinating your child anyway. So these types of laws, which they claim to be philosophical, but they're really not, because if you have to go to a doctor and get them to explain to you, most doctors are ignorant to the cons of vaccines. They give them regularly. They don't understand what the side effects are. They really don't. And there really isn't any pro if you really look into it, because we were talking about the history of polio. It didn't eradicate polio. And when you even go back further, the history of smallpox, very few people realize that, again, smallpox was also on the way out due to hygiene, and it was once they invented it, actually had an increase of smallpox. People don't know this, but the origins of the names allergies and anaphylaxis, which is for life-threatening allergy, actually were originated after a series of people got sick from taking the smallpox vaccine, and it was called serum sickness. And then they relabeled allergy and anaphylaxis. So there was no such thing. People didn't have food allergies, or at least it hadn't medically documented to a great extent at that point. So then they introduced a vaccine, and all of a sudden everybody's getting sick, and they can't tolerate foods, and which is essentially an attack on the immune system. So really, there aren't any pros, because there's no way to for them to actually prove that they work, they can protect you from disease. So when you go to a doctor and you say, well, what are the pros and cons? Well, they're just going to tell you the official story, which is, this is eradicated polio and this will protect you from disease. But that's not true at all. And the cons, they may not know those as well, because there's if you look at the vaccine inserts, for example, it'll say, a series of side effects that were created by the vaccine that people who were in the studies said, this happened to me. I had Guillain-Barré syndrome. My child developed autism. I got sick. I developed allergies, et cetera, on and on. And what they'll say is that these are associated, but not necessarily caused. So we don't know if there's, just because the two things happened coincidentally on or around the same time, that's not necessarily a correlation. That just means that it's sort of an association. So that they'll use this kind of trickery in their language. So, doctors won't want to scare people out of being vaccinated, so they'll a lot of times omit that information, because these people might have called in and said, I did have a serious reaction to a vaccine. That, they'll say, well, that's not as common. And they don't usually collect data on vaccines past a month or so. I think they collect, they have you write a diary every day. They're all done a little bit differently, but in general, how I know that they work is that they have you write a diary every day for about 2 weeks. Then for about a month, you just call in if something serious happens. Then after 6 months, they don't have to record, or then after the month up until 6 months, they don't have to record anything unless you contact them. So you have to go out of your way to say, oh, okay, I had this reaction. Could this be due to the vaccine? And call the pharmaceutical company and tell them. They don't come to you. They won't ask you anything beyond that. So anytime you see a lot of these reactions that may have happened after the fact, they're not necessarily instantaneous. They're not necessarily listed in the pharmaceutical insert on the vaccines. And furthermore, if people do have a reaction, there's a law in this country that they can't sue the pharmaceutical company for damage. So when it comes to vaccines, because in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan, who was president at the time, signed off a law that exempted the pharmaceutical companies from liability because they didn't want to end the vaccination program. So that's where the vaccine industry just exploded, because as soon as they were just given a free ride, they had no problem with just continuing to create vaccine after vaccine after vaccine, because there was no incentive for them, financially anyway, to not to worry about what they created and what it was going to do to the public. So so it's kind of a win-win for them. They can just do it, and if people get sick, then they don't necessarily have to report it most of the time, and they don't necessarily have to pay anything most of the time.
Some of the ingredients are just, straight up toxic heavy metal poisons. Mercury, of course, being the common one, but it's been renamed too for different purposes. Yeah, so people say, "Oh, I don't want no mercury in my kid," but that Tamothol, right, whatever it is, well, that's okay, I guess.
There's more ingredients than just mercury. Mercury is the most common one that people are aware of, and it's thimerosal is what it's called, and it's a mercury derivative. It's contained mostly mercury in it. But I mean, if you're talking about vaccines and cancer, I think the first place to look at, if you're curious about the safety of vaccines, is just what's in them. And the ingredients themselves are things like formaldehyde, which is a known neurotoxin and carcinogen, aluminum, again, a neurotoxin and carcinogen, mercury, as you just mentioned. And there's a whole listing of a bunch of other things that we're not really sure how they're affecting the body, but theoretically they could be causing serious problems within the immune system. And because we're injecting things foreign DNA from other animals, like the polio vaccine, for example, is made with African green monkey kidneys. Maybe people don't know that. That's what it is. And most of these vaccines today, measles, mumps, rubella, measles vaccines are made with the aborted fetal tissue, so the fetus of an aborted baby. And the rubella vaccine, the rubella virus, is actually a derivative from aborted fetus from 1964, a 25-year-old woman who had rubella, aborted her baby, and that the tissues from that baby are used to create most of the vaccines. I mean, they vary a little bit from here because there's different batches, lots, and pharmaceutical companies that manufacture them. But most of them are made that way, and that's actually the way that they want to continue to try and make them
it's through these aborted tissues. They call it human diploid cells, and that's what it is. It's an aborted fetus.
Awesome. I'm going to interrupt you at this time for the 420 report from the Buzz Beaver. And this is, I forgot to tell you, 420. So, this last week, Colorado celebrated their, 2 years now, legalization. Of course, I hate this legalization drive, but unfortunately, I guess that's where we got to start in order to stop the criminalization of marijuana. It has the potential to do a great deal beyond cancer, just the maintenance of health, even if you're just juicing the plant. But the oil itself has been shown many times to correct cancer. And I like to use not the word cure, because the body has a natural process, and cancer is part of that natural process. It's telling you your body's in bad shape, and you need to do something about it. And that usually you can correct most ailments with just bringing your pH up by diet alone. I have a little something here that I want to play. I'm going to have to plug my speaker in to do this here and play through my mic. But stand by, April, and this is for you. Ooh, I hope y'all like it. All right. Here we go.
It's telling me it's true. It's like I fell into a bucket of cream and kicked my legs.
So I became a mouse. What's that about? I'm a conspiracy real.
Okay, I messed up. We're going to start again.
Everything I'm looking at seems crazy. The newspaper, the television, nothing's right. It's telling me it's true. It's like I fell into a bucket of cream and kicked my legs until I became...
What a bonehead. I'm switching plugs over here. Sorry. One more time, okay?
All right.
Here we go.
Everything I'm looking at seems crazy. The newspaper, the television, nothing's right. It's telling me it's true. It's like I fell into a bucket of cream and kicked my legs until I became a mouse. What's that about? I'm a conspiracy realist, not a conspiracy theorist. I want a t-shirt that represents me. What? There's one that's available? Go to shop.truthertease.com, says the voice in my head. Shop.truthertease.com. It's not crazy. I'm not afraid to go on the internet and go to shop.truthertease.com. I'm not scared. I've taken out bowling balls that look like you. That's what I said. Straighten out. Get your conspiracy realist t-shirt. Don't make me come over there. You look good. You look good.
Okay. You look good. But I didn't on this end, so... Oh, my. Sorry about that. I was over here. I look like a monkey pulling wires out of this thing, plugging them back in the wrong hole. But I love that. Yeah, that's shout out Truther Talk and truthertalk.com. I dropped that into the chat there, and so visit over there, and you can find all the past episodes. You have an incredible array of guests that you and Verstein interview every week, and it's just amazing. You really you do have the best people, I think. And Chuck O'Telly does. He gets great people too, great guests.
Yeah, we're kind of amazed at some of the people that we've had on our show, and that most of them say yes. We're like, wow, okay. To be on our show, it's always kind of stunning, but it's been a lot of fun, and I guess it's been over 2 years now since we've been working on it, before we came over to the network with you guys at UCY. We're happy to be with the network for sure. It's a lot more fun now that we're connected with the group, but yeah, it's been quite a fun little interesting thing that we've come to do, so I'm glad we did it.
For sure, yeah. And I found out my mistake, what I made beforehand. I forgot to fire this thing up before I started all that, so happy 420, yeah. Well, now then that I've completely fumbled myself, let me go back to, oops, wrong spot. Maybe I'll find some notes over here. Okay, so this comes from Natural Cures Not Medicine, and I'll just read what they wrote. I now understand that some people out there prefer to give their government the benefit of the doubt. But even these people could not deny what was said in the FDA meeting in 2012. These people openly admit that they are manufacturing a product that they are not only uncertain of, but believe it could be harmful, have harmful effects. And so there's further there. Basically, you say the translation is that among the 3 major health risks behind cancer cell vaccines is the vaccine itself. And that led me to find that they now have a vaccine for cancers. And I did go to some of the government sites and read their explanation, and basically they're saying just, scientifically, it sounds right to me, give a little small introduction of something that maybe you can fight it, but then again, you might be playing Russian roulette too on some of that stuff. Now, if you're talking about maybe doing some natural stuff, now I've inoculated myself from poison ivy, which, I've said this before several times. I mean, I've got scars from it. It was so bad. But now is what I do is, and I don't even have to do it every year anymore. But I just eat a little bit of the plant, a tiny little baby newborn leaf right there, just no bigger than a sliver of your fingernail, Yeah. and I, but I do use a lot of other plants. People consider weeds, and some of them, taste pretty bad. But I'm pretty sure that nature provides for everything that we might need to correct in our way of the way we live. That has to be corrected internally, our inside our body. So, and by the way, I fumbled there and that's the Ocholi Tongue Trip Award, because I was thinking that I better give a bit of a disclaimer that we're having a discussion here and we're not giving you medical advice. Because we're not doctors, but both of us, I'm pretty certain, have seen doctors played on TV.
Yeah. No, our friend Liam, who, Liam Chef, has been on our show a bunch of times, and he always said, I'm not a doctor or a scientist, therefore you can trust me. So it's in the reverse. You can trust what I'm saying, because I do not have an agenda here, and I'm not looking to... I don't really care what people do with themselves or their body. I just want them to have informed consent. And that's the difference with when it comes to vaccination. You're not really given information about what they don't do and what kind of harm they can do. And what they don't do is prevent disease, or at least we're not aware of that, of being able to prevent disease. I mean, every time you look at these so-called outbreaks that they say, well, they blame on the non-vaccinated population, this outbreak of measles or this outbreak of, whooping cough or whatever, you find that a good 80 to 90% of the people who have the disease were actually vaccinated. So how can you blame that on the unvaccinated if the people that are getting it were vaccinated from the disease? So there's really no evidence to show that they actually work. What they do in a controlled study is they test for antibodies. Now, if you are inoculated with something and your body's natural response is to develop an antibody to fight that, that doesn't mean that if you come into contact with the disease that you won't get it. It just means that whatever you were inoculated develop an antibody for. And that's not just the virus itself. It's anything within the vaccine. So we're talking about the aluminum, we're talking about the mercury, we're talking about, they use it, if they make the virus on egg, sometimes they use egg culture, you will develop an antibody to the egg, and therefore you can add to egg. And that's, and totally, and they use peanut oil, by the way, to lubricate the syringes. So we see an epidemic portion of peanut allergy in this country. So they're going to develop antibodies to anything that's in the vaccine, including aborted fetal tissue. So what do you do with that? How does the body remove that when it is human cells? And when you're talking about this and you're saying you eat a little bit of it, well, that's a natural way to receive it. So the body's going to, there is some evidence to show that we can create natural immunity to things. But injection is not a natural way to receive it. Your body doesn't know what to do with that. When you eat it, or it comes through your eyes, your skin, anywhere that you would contract it naturally in the natural world, in the natural environment,
it goes through a normal process of the immune system, and you could potentially develop immunity to it. If you get the chicken pox naturally, then you should be immune to it the next time you come into contact with it. But if you get injected with it, there's no saying that you will. It might not go through that part of your immune system. It might actually cause inflammation in the gut or any of these other things, which is what we see most often. And when you talk about cancer, I mean, cancer is, as you said, it's caused by an imbalance in the pH. And so it really goes back to the immune system. So anytime that you have balance within your system, anytime you have, an immune system that's capable of fighting disease, capable of combating these things, when you come into contact with them, then you can pretty much clear yourself of anything. And so where these vaccines are hurting people is that they're really damaging the immune system. And I say this from experience. I've seen this happen to my son. It's very clear. He's not just autistic. He has quite a very serious autoimmune disease. And it's not a coincidence that he's autistic and has that. Those two things go hand in hand. And it's the same with cancer. Somebody gets cancer, you can guarantee that they have problems in their immune system.
And also, any number of other diseases, diabetes, arthritis, and more. Now, hey, welcome. Give a shout out to a couple of friends. I hope a couple. I know one. Lacey Chantel writes. She was a little late tuning in, but that's okay because it will archive. So I was talking to them. They're my friends on down the road here. And Larry, howdy. I'm going to come down there and make you listen if you're not listening. Now, I had the discussion, and I told them I'm just practicing a little bit on you, but so many times what we encounter, most people, even when they become aware of these problems with vaccines, they go ahead and consent to allowing their children to be vaccinated in schools. And like we said, there's a lot more, a larger number of vaccines given, it seems, every year. But anyways, so Larry's completely against the idea of not vaccinating his child. And, no disrespect, but this is what I often run up to or into on any topic. Most people either, just will shut it off and not listen, not respond, even get angry, and almost like blame you for, a lot of times even for being, that tinfoil hat wearing crazy conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
We're not theorists, okay?
No, I mean, I've done hundreds of hours of research on this subject, and I've witnessed it firsthand. I have no agenda. I mean, if he wants to vaccinate his child, that's his business. I don't really care. It's not. But I am going to tell those who are interested in learning the history and learning what these things actually can do, and what I've seen from my own personal experience. And so, if somebody comes and says, "Well, I'm angry with you for saying that because I think otherwise, or I think these things are good and that they're safe," and I mean, I don't really know what to do with that. I have a vaccine damaged child, and that's pretty much what it is. But I mean, in addition to that, in addition to personal experience, I've done, like I said, hundreds and hundreds of hours of research. I know for a fact that doctors don't do that kind of research. I know, for certain that they don't know that much about vaccines that they're giving. Because we've interviewed doctors and we've asked them. We had Dr. Rima Lobo on our show, and she said, absolutely, they don't know anything that's in them. I mean, if you listen to Dr. Sherry Tenpenny talk about it, she said, absolutely, she had no idea what was in a vaccine before she became a doctor. And even after she became a doctor, it wasn't until later when she started hearing stories about women who were taking the flu shot and were having a large number of miscarries that she started to wonder what was in them, because she had always thought it was just sort of the saline solution and a tiny bit of the virus, and but that's not it at all. And so, I know that I have done more research than doctors have. And I don't mean to say that arrogantly. It's just that I've had to, because I had a vaccine damaged child, and I had to figure out what was going on with his body to try and help him get better.
What are some of the things that you've used in practice with, bettering your son, as far as you use diet and therapy and
Yeah. Diet and therapy, as you said, the simplest things are the best things. There's a lot of stuff that's out there. Most of it, it works on some of the kids. I haven't seen a tremendous amount of things that have helped Aiden other than just, like you said, diet. I mean, because he has an autoimmune disease, he is very prone to allergies. He's very prone to leaky gut issues. And so it's a constant struggle to keep his gut from leaking and causing more allergies. So diet has been key. We've eradicated grains and sugar and things like that. So he's basically like caveman diet, just meat and vegetables and fruit. That's pretty much all he can tolerate. So, and nothing is synthetic, organic as much as possible, non-GMO. Those things are really helpful. Sometimes when there's a neurological problem, this might sound odd to people, but using the fats in their diet, there's a diet called the ketogenic diet, and this is actually sometimes used for cancer too. But it's high. It keeps the body in a state of ketosis, which is, but it requires a large amount of fat and cholesterol because the brain is made up of 9% fat and cholesterol. So it's used regularly. Even doctors used to prescribe it for people with epilepsy and seizure disorder. And in the 1920s, they invented the anti-seizure medications, and so they stopped prescribing the diet. But a lot of people will go back to the diet once the medications don't work. So he's not on that type of diet. It's really, really hard to keep on that diet. But something kind of similar along those lines, I think, has been beneficial to him and helped keep him calm and regulated. But other than that, your basic therapy, speech therapy, and things like that can be somewhat beneficial.
Awesome. And Aiden's Road to Recovery is your Facebook page there to cover that.
Yeah, that's my blog. aidensrecovery.blogspot.com is where they can find my essays and the things I've written about him and his recovery.
Bless you. Now, we were chatting a little bit earlier, and so your third, I'm going to come bring this about Sarah Sotomayor. That was your third episode of Truth or Talk, and she is recovering from vaccine injury from Gardasil. So let's talk some about Gardasil and then some about Sarah's story. And she was paralyzed for 10 years after the injury.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's almost, I can't remember what episode she was. I don't know if it was the third one or not. She was definitely in one of our first interviews. And we call her our third member because we interviewed her early on about her story after she had been vaccinated with the Gardasil vaccine when she was 13. And I think she's 22 now, so it's almost 10 years that she's been dealing with this. And what happened to her was she went in for Gardasil, which is the vaccine for HPV virus, or human papillomavirus. And the official story is that HPV causes cervical cancer. There is a correlation, perhaps, in a number of people that have HPV, and people who then will later develop cervical cancer. But we don't know that it actually causes cancer. In fact, it probably doesn't. Because HPV is extremely common, what it is essentially is warts. Any type of virus where you develop warts on anywhere over your body. They specifically are trying to inoculate it for genital warts because they consider it to be a sexually transmitted disease that causes cervical cancer. But from my research, and I've done a lot on the Gardasil vaccine and on HPV, it doesn't. And we've had an expert on our show, Leslie Carol-Waltha, who, is one of the predominant experts on the Gardasil vaccine and on women's health in general. There's very little evidence to show that HPV actually causes cancer. So Sarah, we had her on to talk about what happened to her when she was 13, and she went in for this vaccine. Basically, it's been an ongoing struggle. Originally they couldn't diagnose what was wrong with her, she went in and she just was having one series of health problems after another, several trips into the hospital. I mean, and it turned into a basic pharmaceutical nightmare. They brought her in and put her on chemotherapy. They put her on, she didn't have cancer, but they gave her chemotherapy. Chemotherapy drugs. Also gave her painkillers, had her addicted to morphine. And it just went on from there for years to where she was down below 90 pounds or so, couldn't walk. And at this point, she still is unable to. She's still bedridden. She's a very smart girl, which is why we love her very much, and we have her on our show all the time to come in and correspond and talk about the things that she knows about, and which is a lot. And she's very up on what's going on within the pharmaceutical industry and health. And her and her family essentially had to get off of the mainstream medical route because she was just getting sicker and sicker and sicker and worse on that route. And her healing journey is now turned to natural medicine and trying to go that way and diet similar to what we're doing with Aiden. So, but yeah, she was, I mean, you might have heard these stories about these girls going for these Gardasil vaccines, and now they're going to boys as well, which explain that because boys don't have a cervix. But they give them to boys as well, and you know it's just been a complete and utter disaster. There's been nothing but constant people getting sicker, and in talk about cancer, increased risk of cancer by about 35%. It said if you go on website, it's called SaneVax. I think it's sanevax.org. And you can find information on that. And it's the number of reports on that are that it actually has shown an increase of cervical cancer. So, explain that.
It's kind of like the Cheech and Chong school of thought. Here, take this, man. No, don't take that, man. Crazy. I'm laughing. I shouldn't be laughing, but...
no, it's okay. We laugh all the time. I mean, what are you going to do, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, the HPV vaccine, it supposedly is only targeting one of several of the problems going on. And then, like you said, giving them to guys, it's just like a crapshoot, right? Let's just throw something at it. Let's do something else. And, but the benefit of that is once you get more symptoms, and you can get more medicine, so rack it up.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is because once you have someone who is vaccine damaged, then you have a lifelong customer because then they have an immune system that has failed because they've been vaccinated. And there's a big misconception about vaccine damage as well, because if you have somebody who, say, dies from the Gardasil vaccine or develops autism from the MMR vaccine, a lot of people will assume that there's some kind of genetic predisposition to something that predisposes them to having this type of damage. And I always sort of liken that to, if you were, say, exposed to the Fukushima fallout or to Chernobyl fallout and you got cancer. Some people might get cancer, some people might not. But do the ones that get cancer, are they genetically predisposed to cancer? Or were they just exposed to nuclear fallout? So, essentially what you're doing is inoculating people, injecting people with a Fukushima. I mean, it's really that bad. I'm not joking. It's like there's not I'm not exaggerating in any way. Once you go in and start looking at what's in the vaccines, and it's not, it's a cover-up, but it's in plain sight. You can go on the CDC's website themselves. Start there. Go to cdc.org, vaccine ingredients. Look them up by one, their PDFs, and start analyzing what these ingredients are and what's in them and how these people are getting injected with them and how small children, you're talking less than 20 pounds, babies, sometimes as much as less than 10 pounds, and they're going in and they're getting injected with 3, 4, 5 shots in a day. Sometimes I've heard as many as 9. And so, and each one of these shots could have mercury or aluminum or any of these number of ingredients I said, plus these foreign DNA, which seems to be causing epigenetic changes in the body. So in other words, it's changing your genetic material. It's changing your genetic makeup. So what do they mean when they say you're genetically predisposed? Are you? Or were you just messed with and that brought your genes actually changed? Your gene expression is different.
Okay, let's take the gloves off then, because it appears that we, the people of the world, are being assaulted at every level, and it's not very hard to take a look at all the proponents of evidence and determine that it appears to me that we're targets for extinction by some interests that exist in this world. Powers, whatever you want to call them, the governments, it's so interwoven and secret and wrapped up with these codes and statutes into a corporatocracy that it's so, it's just so tangled that it's very hard to unweave for many people to think that government, and I'm going to use that word loosely just to incorporate what I was trying to say there, is trying to kill us.
Mm. Yeah, if they're not trying to kill us, then they certainly don't care if we live or die. I mean, I don't know what the people in government, I don't know what their specific thoughts are, or if they just don't care, or if they actually want us dead. But I think it's important to understand when we talked at the beginning about, the history of polio or the history of smallpox, the history of the pharmaceutical companies goes back to portions of Operation Paperclip, which, if people are familiar, was Nazi scientist experiments. So a lot of, was going on was during that time was actually just, pharmaceutical experimentation, for social Darwinism in play. So let's see if we give people this, who's going to survive, or let's see if we do this, what's going to happen, and let's put fluoride in the water, let's make them docile. Let's if this, all this stuff was kind of they just didn't really know, and this is just an extenuation of that. I mean, this is still what's going on. It's not. And it's not a joke to say that Nazi scientists are running the pharmaceutical companies. That is where the origins of these companies are made from. And so that's history you can find out. They are aspirin company, for example. And so it's just extenuation of that. I don't know what their end goal is exactly, but certainly the result is that a lot of people are getting sick. A lot of people are dying. And they're calling it, anything but vaccines, or autism, anything but vaccines. But in the science world, you can't do that. You can't prove a negative. You can only prove a positive. So anytime somebody says, well, we don't know what causes autism, we don't know what causes cancer, but we know that it's not vaccine, that's a lie. That's just a lie, because they can't, but we know that it's not vaccines. There's no way they can not know. You can't prove a negative. So it's just, and so if people are saying that that's what's going on, then, I certainly have seen it, so I believe them. And the numbers certainly show that it's true. So whatever their end goal is, I can't really say. But I know that it's, that we're certainly not, they're certainly not concerned about our well-being.
Well, Last Action Hero in chat says, first of all, I agree. I want Chitango back. He says, call them Quasars. And now, let me just back up into the show preceding Michael Kloss on Unlock the Door. He was going through some of the history going on over there, with the going on with Russia and stuff over in that area. Mm-hmm. But you kind of backtrack history, and really, it's the same game under a new name, and you can, very easily backtrack a conspiracy for 100 and something years. But even beyond that, he was kind of comparing America to the fall of Rome. And people think that this is going to go on forever, but America has been targeted, and it's increasingly, the population used to be kind of, blessed here, and I don't think there's near as many blessings these days. Everything's going overseas, jobs, and people are calling for more government interaction to bring a solution for a problem that they created. And like you said, this can track right back. And I know you've covered it. I've covered, like you, I've been on a journey here, and just tracking the truth. And there's so much evidence out there, but unfortunately, most people live in the society that was created for them, and us, all of us together, and we all fall victim at some point to, of course, propaganda. Since that's my my nickname, Propaganda Panda. You're Papa, baby.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I'd have to call you Papa now.
Yeah, I like that. So now I'm over here smiling ear to ear and saying, "Oh, where do we go from here?"
Do continue.
Okay, so yeah, we got the Chitango. We really miss it. We really do. And thanks to Last Action Hero. I think that was probably Hammy. He's a host here on UCY on Tuesday nights for Primer Time, talking about guns. You know, we have quite an array of programming here at UCY.tv. We cover about everything in the gamut, I think, of the most important topics. Dane Wigington on earlier today. Something that he said that really makes a lot of sense is if you'll drive past a restaurant, if there's no cars in the parking lot, it doesn't draw anybody in. But when you've got a full parking lot, you'll have a line out the door. And basically what he was saying is that, coverage, we've got to keep sharing. We're in an age right now where, 25 years ago when I first started talking about this stuff, it was, the forum wasn't here. Now we have the chance to tip this world right side up. We can talk face to face, literally, around the world now, except for some parts, of course, are blacked out. But we have great freedoms, and they're being taken from us. I think the slave population, and some people will know what I'm talking about, and others will think, well, this guy's nuts. What do you mean a slave? We're free. We're really not. We're so controlled every step of the way. We're extorted, and if you don't pay your extortion and taxes, then you'll be killed or in prison. We're forced to participate so many ways in what's so wrong with this world. I've been guest hosting Off-Grid Journey the last few weeks, and tomorrow I'm going to talk about some of the different ramifications and ways that we can step out and back out and use the system against itself. And anybody that thinks that setting buildings, which it looks to me like that was some professionals in there doing that in Ferguson, but armed revolution will never succeed. And you know history. It's always failed, and it's always co-opted, and it's always used for the destruction of the people and for more control. So we're in a revolution of the mind here and our way of thinking. And we have so many great people here at UCY, and Jules that keeps us all up and going. It takes a lot of work, and I'm proud to be a part and be along for such a great fight here. And I know you're definitely in the fight. Like I said, you rock. That's who rocks, Last Action Hero.
Oh, that's sweet. Well, thank you. I'm definitely proud to be with everybody on this show. It's really good. I mentioned Dane. We had Dane on the show before we were with UCY, and there's a lot of good shows on here, and so I was glad that you guys brought us in, and we can be a part of it. So, thank you.
Awesome.
I haven't told you that yet.
I want to share before we run out of time too. Stay tuned. Now, last week I said 3 hours, and I'm shuffling time zones all the time in my mind, mostly across the United States here, the corporatocracy of America, but around the world too, because we do have a worldwide listening audience. Most every one of our shows do download and archive to YouTube, so you can find that UCY.tv user on YouTube, and April, all your shows are there, and go give them a listen if you missed part, or share them with your friends. Give it a thumbs up over there, give them a like, and share them around. Coming up here, like I said, about 2 hours and 6 minutes, Mr. Chuck Ocelli, another one of my heroes. There's so many here, and so he's going to have Frank Gregory Ford on his show again, and he's a former Army intelligence operative who, he says, participated in enhanced interrogations. We're gonna that ought to be pretty interesting. So I may have missed the first time this man was on, so I'll have to go back and find that. Which Chuck did post it, but so it's not going to be hard to find. Tell me now, what are you guys up to now? I think you was off kind of on a break till May, but I know you did some radio with Liam, and you had some friends pop in here a couple weeks ago. I have something I'd love for you to do. I know I've talked to you about it. Now I'm putting you on the spot. The filmmaker Ira Lee, and an amazing woman. She travels the Eurasian area of the world, I guess, and makes documentaries and into Afghanistan and all the Khuzar regions. I'm sorry, I forget the name of some of the other countries around there. Of course, Pakistan and India. She's been to India. Amazing, and I'm not sure that she's Muslim or not, but I would assume that she is. So I have been in contact with a person that is an administrator for her, but anyways, so maybe later on we can get to talking about that and getting you to interview, because I think she should be interviewed by a woman for cultural respect, at least.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we're taking a bit of a break because I had a baby 3 months ago, and we're replaying some old shows here and there, but we still have some new ones that we haven't released yet. And we have a couple interviews that we've taken just taken off from break to make exceptions for certain people, because I did have a friend. Maybe you heard the interview we did, what was it, 2 weeks ago with my friend Kim Dorch with her family and their police situation. So that one was for the one that we just did a couple weeks ago, because she was a friend of mine and was ready to talk about her situation. So, we'll be putting out new stuff.
Can you hear me?
Awesome. Hey, yes, Jay Cynthia, welcome. April, I want to thank you so much for coming on. Jay Cynthia's going to pop in here for the end of the show. Glad to have you back. I've been missing you. And remember to tune in Sundays for Truth or Talk here on UCY.tv and truthertalk.net, or is that org? Sorry, on the web. Thanks, April.
Yes. All right, you're welcome. Talk later. All right.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Hey, Jay Cynthia.
Hi, this is your homeless friend calling in.
Oh, my goodness. You've been gone for so long. I thought you'd be to Arkansas by now.
Yeah, no, I should have gone right when you asked me. This has just been like such a crazy, unusual, icky time for me. So yeah, just bouncing around from place to place. It's been pretty, and I miss all you guys. I miss all the people there. I miss you, Vinny. I miss Jules. I miss Becky Haynes. I miss Lisa Smith. Joe Friday. I miss all you guys so much.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been having a great time hosting, standing in for you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful opportunity for me, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, good. I love the way that's working out. That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah, when I get a chance, I try to jump and listen to it at a show or do the archive and listen later, and you're doing a terrific job, and I just can't tell you how much I love and appreciate you, and I appreciate you hanging in and, covering my ass again during this, horrible. This is, one of the worst times of my life, really. I mean, to the point where it's like, do I have to look into homeless shelters because I cannot find a place to live?
Oh, my. You got a good compliment earlier in chat. It says, I can't back up on this. We got this temporary chat. Dadgummit. But anyways, you're hot.
Oh! I'm hot and homeless.
Well, screw you on over here to Arkansas, girl. We'll be as snug as bugs in a rug.
If I could find a way to get there, I would now, Vinny. That's for sure.
Well, I'll come give you a piggyback ride.
Yeah, is chat down? Because I tried to get into the chat room and I couldn't for some reason.
Yeah, Chitango is down. Hey, Joe. Good to see you in here. Yeah, we've got a temporary little chat here, and we got 35 in this little chat room right here. So welcome. And it's hard to. There it is. Love and peace, y'all. Love Jason.
Love everybody. Thank you, Vinny.
Bye-bye.
I believe in angels, and I believe in you. I believe in the simple things and everything you do. I believe in the heavens above, and I believe in truth. I believe in the love we have because I believe in you.